Morning.
Good morning, Rick. How are things in Oregon this morning?
Well, they're drying up a little bit from our rain yesterday. We're good.
I heard there was an unusual amount of rain this year. Is that true?
Yes. And yet, our water table is way, way down because there is no snowpack.
So it's kind of catch up now, is it?
Well, it's not even close. That's the deal. It's lots of rain, but it's not even close.
I see. Well, this morning I'd like to talk about, continue our conversation where we finished last time, which was talking about Uri Geller and Andrea Poharic. But before we go there, I do think it might be worthwhile to touch base again on what's happening with the radiation and the chemical, the geoengineering that's been going on.
All of it.
I know that's something you've been following closely.
Yeah. Well, background radiation is up everywhere across America right now. From what it was 2 years ago, the background radiation levels have increased between 300 and 700 times. Would you like my camera on?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
All right, let me get my hat and turn on some lights here so that I have the right kind of...
We might give this... I might keep this bit, or I might do a little restart here. I see your camera's on. I've got a very nice view of a lamp there in the background.
That one I just turned off.
I like that.
Come in, like my little
sitting Buddha
logo thing. That's about as good. This lamp, usually with light in it, isn't working right. So this is, let's say, pretty much what I've got to go for right now.
Yeah, I think it's quite early in the morning there. What is it, about 7:30 or something there?
Yeah, it's 7:30. The sun is up, well, it's not the sun, it's cloudy, but yeah.
What's left of the sun.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, well, good morning, Rick. So I would like to talk this morning a little bit about what's going on with the radiation in the sky, and then later on we'll get into talking about Uri Geller and so far.
Sure.
Is there any improvement? Let's be optimistic. Is there any improvement you're seeing there?
No. You mean in the radiation levels? No, they're getting worse. And I have a concern, and basically there's a paper out that would suggest that Fukushima is becoming an extinction event. Basically, the stratosphere has a radioactive particulate cloud that's in holding pattern right now. I don't know if that's what the geoengineering is about, to try to hold this cloud in place or not, rather than allowing it to fall on Earth. I don't have a clue on that. I know that it's not military. I know that my camera keeps going on and off, and I can reset it there. And then at some point the light decides, let me see if I can't get some better light here.
Well, I'll talk while you're doing that. I think what might help is if you do have a light on, because I think the software will go to where it sees the most motion, and it will see the motion better if there's a contrast between dark and light. And that's somehow better, I think. I can see your face better.
Around a little bit. Yeah. You're seeing a window in my bedroom that's open, so that's daylight here. That's what we've got.
Well, we don't have any here where I am in Hong Kong, but
what time is it there now?
Shortly, in a few hours' time.
We're in the future. Is this like a time travel thing where we're tunneling through?
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you what stocks to buy, though, unfortunately.
That's not how time works, by the way. People used to think they could manipulate time, but see, time is related to all the different selves of you and your agendas for your purpose. And so if you were to win the lottery, that wouldn't be the lesson you're supposed to learn. And so if you often, when you do magic and try to make something happen, like the lottery or whatever, what'll happen is you'll get what you wanted, but not exactly the way you want it.
Is it a little bit like the genie who will give you your wishes, but
that's exactly correct. Yes, it's the little genie. And it doesn't seem, because everybody knows what the right thing to do is. They just don't want to do it.
Well, we're all a bit stubborn and lazy, I suppose.
Well, then that's the reason why you create karma, or you get out of here. You can kick and scream, or you can accept it and take the lessons in as a gift. And you have that choice. And choosing how you choose to do it then determines your internal landscape, your health, and all the rest of what goes along with karma.
Well, that's interesting. Is some level of stress good for us then?
You know, if you didn't have pain, you wouldn't be alive. Pain has got its purpose. It's the coping part that you're talking about, putting it down to a certain level or threshold of awareness. That is what magic is the art of changing consciousness at will. So if you can regulate that everything happens for a reason, everything leads to something better, you take that mindset and then apply it to every moment of your life, and now you'll find a thing called the flow, where everything seemingly falls together for you, and rather than you have to fight your way down towards something, the universe makes it happen for you. That is what we're all seeking. That
yes,
place of compromise between our...
Is there a finite amount of that flow? Because if you had a population of 1 million people, and they were all operating in flow, then presumably the society would be incredible. And yet, I wonder if there's some kind of limit to flow, where in a society of 1 million people, maybe half of them could be in flow, and the other half would be in some kind of conflict. Because if things go too easy, I mean, we've learned this in the U.S., I think, over the last few decades. If things go too easily for us, we become complacent. We stop learning, and we can become a bit stupid.
Well, we already have. That's what's causing the disruption. It would be really nice to have another Atlantis, which was probably, I don't know, the asteroid belt or whatever, or Greece, or even Japan, where they had cultures that had their place or position in the scheme of things. That's what the Shogun concept was all about. I don't know. I'm just in discovery like everybody else. And so I'm only just discovering for myself what seemingly is the place I belong in the whole of things. Not try to fight my way here or push my way there, but just allow it to happen.
But Rick, it changes obviously over time, because knowing about your background, when you left the military and went into farming, you obviously were moving to a place where you felt was more your home, the place where you're meant to be. And the place you are at the moment is very different from that. So isn't that what life's about, is making those different chapters work for us?
Well, everything changes. I mean, that is the rule. I mean, your personal growth, all of it, is part of what the whole soup is about. And so it's the integration of it, and integrating it into the scheme of everything, and then being able to go out and try to do the right thing. It's like learning how to listen to yourself. And it changes, from day to day, just like your sleep does. I got good sleep last night, or I didn't sleep well last night, that kind of thing. There's reasons why there are these schisms that occur. And that's the higher self trying to nudge you towards something. That's what illness is called in Jungian psychology. All illness is the way your subconscious communicates to your consciousness. Once you have that message, then there's no need for the illness, and so it's gone. That's how it works.
Well,
and so cancer is, a way of waking you up.
But I mean, I was listening to an interesting podcast this afternoon about someone who was talking about aging, and he was saying we're living a lot longer these days because we don't have so many infections, and there's certain illnesses we can deal with. But at the same time, the body just wears out. The telomeres unravel. The cartilage goes in your knee. I mean, those kind of illnesses, no matter how you feel about it, you're still going to have the wear and tear, aren't you?
Well, that's why we're constantly talking to ourselves and keeping things like diaries and so on. Sorry about that phone. There's nothing I can do about that other than let him take the message. So,
okay.
The idea is that we're all here for a purpose, and that at some level, all of us are the same person. That would be what they call the archetypal plane, or the length, girth, and width of man's full body of constructs, including apocalypse and whatever. And so at some level, I've had the pleasure of meeting people and hearing talks of people that have died and somehow come back to life, the Kubler-Ross form. And one of the recurring themes that's always said is that every single person you've met, you actually have to live their life before you get out of here. That's how many lives there are in terms of the nature of what time and space are. Now, time and space are constructs that we have used in previous physics that we're now finding may be limitations in our worldviews of what is and is not. And this gravity wave thing that we're talking about now, and the idea that there was a Big Bang that lasted for just a moment. We talked about gravity waves earlier this morning. I feel that we're just now starting to understand the nature of space and time and their limitations of what they truly mean. They are generally applied only to the physical plane. That's why we make physical measurements. But the physical measurements are scalars, if you will, of something more going on, like information, and that at some point will transcend the nature of what information is and is not, and have some new word that we haven't even invented yet or conceived. These are the steps that we go toward trying to integrate our experiences and memory. We're finding that we have past memories. You can pull them out with hypnosis. You can do that with future lives. There is a place in the brain called the Wernicke correction near the reticular activating center, the RAS, or primitive brain part of itself, that if you hypnotize somebody and you take them down into activating that part of memory, we'll all transculturally have the same memory of working on Mars for the U.S. government.
Wow.
That's it's called the Mars connection and the Wernicke correction. It's
so,
the Wernicke
Rick,
correction.
that is really interesting, and I want to ask you more about that. So this memory
is not genetic. It's something else.
And how far back? I mean, would people who had the same hypnosis or whatever, would they have had those memories 100 years ago or 50 years ago?
I haven't done those studies. That's, there's no way to do that. We just made that discovery, and now we have a concept of certain parts of the brain and how they might be different.
So that would be some memory that could have come into our brain since we were born, or does it mean it's a past life? Do we have any way of knowing?
Yeah, what you're talking about now is knowledge a priori and knowledge a posteriori. Before birth, a child comes out of the womb knowing how to suck. Where did it learn how to do that? It's a priori. It's something that was before birth that was part of genetics. I don't know how that all works. That's not my area of expertise.
So how long have they been pulling these memories out? Is it the last 10 years or more than that?
Yeah, more than 10, yeah. About since the early 90s, they started doing that study. The Wernicke correction has been around for some period of time. It is a part of the brain that has certain functions that are interesting. And I'm now realizing that the brain is something far more than just a big crystal sitting on top of an antenna, the body. You know, it's got some elements to it that we call amorphous semiconductors or liquid crystal phases. It's constantly changing, you know, like the temporal lobes. And those temporal lobes will absolutely create a different kind of reality projection predicated on how you look through them. And that's why I'm writing this book on how to change the movie. I believe that the ability to control our thoughts will allow us to control our physical part of reality.
So there was a movie about Mars with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Total Recall.
Total Recall, yeah.
And from that, and he discovered in his brain he had memories of working on Mars. So perhaps the maker of that movie was yet another person who'd been sort of infected in some way or contracted in some way.
Well, all your good sci-fi writers take into full account all the latest discoveries in science, integrate them in, because whenever you have a story, you know, confabulated story, and it has elements of truth in it, it rings like a bell. And everybody gets it, and that's what makes a good sci-fi yarn, is that there's the possibility of probability. So, with that said, I don't think we have a clue yet what memory.
It could be. I mean, look, I'm just guessing here, but it could be that our consciousness, and maybe this is obvious, resides outside our body, and it resides all around the world.
I can prove that. It does. Yeah. Uh-huh. There's something else going on. The difference between the soul and
are affected by our dreams and what's going on in the universe. So if somebody was having a very traumatic experience on another planet, such as Mars, it's not inconceivable in that model of reality that the brains who are experiencing that could somehow influence our dreams and our own memories. Is that possible?
Well, yeah, we have, back when I was working in paranormal studies, we were interested in astrology, but not in terms of astrology of personality. There was a group of different scientists that came out of Yugoslavia at that time that had a thing called Cosmobiology, and it was relating planetary movement to events on Earth. And there was a study that had come out that I did on earthquake hazards with the Department of Interior, Menlo Park. And I remember that when the planet Uranus and the Sun and the Earth are in a certain geometric alignment, there was a major earthquake on Earth. And so this is before we started monitoring sunspots. And we realized that there were relationships in planetary movements, like the storm on Jupiter, had some kind of metaphorical relationship to something that was happening on Earth. And that was the nature of cosmobiology. And it was very scientific, and there were absolute triggers impregnated into bodies, like the lunar sex cycle of the female. Basically, Janov proved, that guy is one of the Yugoslavians in this cosmobiology, that when a woman is born in a location on Earth, it sets up an ovulation window with the planet, with a planetary alignment of where Earth and the Moon and the Sun were. And it was the lunar sex cycle of the female, and she moved so that that cycle was changed. Her ovulation also changed. And they noted that and made studies on that. It was very interesting because you could accurately predict the sex of an unconceived child if you knew when the conception occurred. If you knew when it occurred, you knew the sex of the cycle of the child that was unborn. And that was very interesting.
So if you wanted to choose the sex of your child, you could use that information.
We could do more than that. You could have it as a birth control on when you did not have sex, for example. And if you decided you wanted to have a male, then we're going to do it this month, not next month. That kind of thing.
And does it come down to a day or an hour, or do you know?
Yeah, it comes down to a 3-day window with high probability of an 87%, which was a 1 sigma error, 87%. And that was reproducible. And there was a book called Lunar Sex Cycle of the Female by Yana that came out on that very topic. It was very popular about the time of Geller and, the rest of it. That's when it was all happening.
Well, this might be a good time to segue into Geller, but just before doing that,
I love you, Michael.
About cycles and astrology. Are you familiar with the guy called Eben Browning?
Eben Browning, no.
Okay, because he did a lot of work on cycles and relating those to earthquake activity, and and his daughter, who's called Evelyn Garish Browning, is now a sort of very prominent forecaster of long-term climate and weather changes.
We now know that most primary events on the Earth are due to coronal mass ejections now. We know that. However, their effect on other planets like Venus and the way it changes. I had a thing on Facebook last month showing how the atmospheric resonance sets up a resonant pattern that will radiate through the universe based on the atmosphere of Venus and sunspots hitting Venus, not Earth.
Yeah,
so
I've heard David Wilcock and others talk about how we're not just seeing global warming on Earth.
It's global warming on Mars? Yeah,
but we're seeing it all over the galaxy.
Not the galaxy. In our solar system, the heliosphere is heating up, and that means there's global warming on Mars as well. The actual event of coronal masses sets up this radiation bubble that encloses our solar system, and that's called the heliosphere, and that is heating up. Yes.
And so, one theory is that chemtrails are designed to reduce the impact of the changing.
That was the first story when Gore was going to run for president. He talked about global warming and blah blah blah. That was the first excuse for show on that. We were going to try to stop global warming by reflecting sunlight back to the sun. However, that's crazy, and the amount of radiation that's coming through, there's no way that man, even using things like HAARP and particulate matter, trying to structure stuff, could do that. We're going to try, but I now don't know what it's for, and know that it's not military. It's a UN project. It's like Agenda 21. I have no idea what that whole thing's about, other than there are several transnational corporations involved. Are they alien? I don't know. I don't know what that's about. It seems like if I don't know, what does that say about what's going on with mankind being ignorant and duped?
Well, I mean, you've been your whole life connecting dots and have access to information that most of us will never see.
I don't know about that part, but later.
And yet there seems to be people out there who are hoarding new information, and there are a lot of new changes being thrown at us. And as we were talking earlier,
World War III. I told you that World War III has already started. It is a war of information, and the battleground is the internet. And nothing that's being reported on the internet, including me, is real. Now, with that said, and me being as good as I am at connecting dots, and I'm here to tell you I don't know, what does that suggest?
Well,
I think we've been invaded. I think we've been invaded by something, and that they're using our educational systems to dumb us down. They're transnational corporations to make us compliant and become sheeple. I have a concern. When I was in Mexico, the key word referred to by Europeans that came in about the United States is ill-informed, ignorant, and complacent. Those were the key words that I heard. And what's going on in that regard, and why are we behaving like that?
Were they suggesting they were better?
No, they just were suggesting that they knew more about the fact that we're being duped than the United States would acknowledge. When I was in Mexico, none of the people there knew about chemtrails. I pointed up and down. They thought they were, oh yeah, they're a little different than cirrus clouds and a lot lower, but, you know, I've been saying those for a while, so I hadn't thought about it. That's crazy. You know, when you notice that the clouds are no longer the same, why would that be? And you just assume that's normal?
Oh, photographers are talking about how the sky's not blue anymore.
Well, imagine that. Yeah.
Well, and that the sun is a different color. It's now white rather than yellow, as it was when we were growing up so many years ago. Yeah. So they say, and they say their photography, the equipment they're using is telling them the same thing. That lenses they used 2 decades ago no longer work.
Well, there's stuff in the atmosphere now that changes the absorption of light. And so that's what Gore said it was about, but I'm guessing that's just the tip of many different reasons why it's happening. And some of them that I can connect dots to are not very pleasant.
So
like trying to hold the stratosphere with all that particulate matter that came out of Fukushima. I don't think we're ever going to know how bad that was.
Well, we started off talking about illness and how people are thrown challenges by the universe, and they have to cope with those. And it used to be in the old days, our challenge was growing food or making a living. And now we have a challenge which is outside ourselves and even outside our society, which is...
You mean the air we breathe and the food we eat and the water we drink and the thoughts we think?
Yeah.
They're assaulting us on all levels.
They're calling on us for a much larger response than we've ever been asked for before.
It's time for men to get up off the couch and start listening to themselves. You know, that's the idea I spoke about before about contracts and the fact that religions have actually somehow convinced you to place a mediator to talk to God on your behalf, like a pope. Now, what's wrong with that concept in terms of you being able to talk directly to the Lord?
It's a question
and
of
the
authority,
fact
isn't it?
there's something wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've given up at the whole concept of an agreement, a contract where you've signed away, you know, certain rights for privileges or whatever. I have, you know, a privilege of being, what is that called, forgiven, you know, rather than doing it yourself.
Yes.
It's a metaphor on what's going on in terms of awareness and why you would behave the way you are.
We're being asked by our circumstances to cooperate at a level where we don't understand what's going on, where we don't know what to do. We're being asked for a whole new level of performance by these adverse changes that are happening in our climate right now.
This is why we make a distinction between free will and true will. And man does not have free will because he doesn't have full disclosure.
Yeah.
That's the deal. With full disclosure, now you have rights. But
so
you don't
there's
have,
no one we
you
can
have
go
responsibilities.
to. Yeah, I mean, you know, in the old days, I think we would have gone to the government and demanded more information, or we demand access to this file or that file. Nowadays, we don't know who to go to.
Well, the Freedom of Information Act, the whole idea of giving you full disclosure or whatever you want to know, has turned into its own battlefield. And once you realize that information is not what it's about, What it's about is that internal core of self inside yourself that knows. And while it might be in conflict with my beliefs, that's God's purpose, the lesser part of not having full disclosure. What you need to do is figure out what you're supposed to do. And basically, it's your children watching you that then learn how to do what they do. Because it isn't going to be us or you or me that changes or saves this earth. It's going to be our grandchildren. And the only way they're going to know how to do it is by watching what you do.
Yeah, we first have to survive that long. We've got to keep our children alive. We've got to keep our society alive for that period of time. And that's already a pretty big challenge.
Yeah. The breakup of the family was where it all started. You know, when I was in Mexico, the one thing that they did have that was wealthy was their family was still intact, and that the mother was the key to all of it. Even though grandma was more important, you know, as the older elder, it was the mother that held the family together. And that's all but gone here in America. We have some relationship.
Yeah, I don't think it's gone. I mean, I think they've tried to destroy the family.
Well, with divorce and marriage.
Yeah, in various ways. And, you know, if we get sucked into the circus of television, there's a lot going on there that's trying to destroy the family. And yet, at the same time, I see a lot of people trying hard to hold on to it, including minority groups. And I'm hearing more and more people in minority groups on the internet talking about how they have to hold the family together. And
that is excellent. That is going to be, you know, the Spanish, Hispanic community, the black community have a better relationship with their families and siblings, pretty much, than what we currently enjoy as Caucasian. And it is true. I'm doing everything I can to keep it together, but the educational process is not equipped to teach those values to the children. They've left it to our educational system to pick up where the family would have normally done it around a dinner table. And, you know, values and the way you behave with other people and so on. And now that that's no longer there and the kids no longer have that community of family when they eat or whatever as a unit, watching TV, whatever they're doing now, educationally is, I think, purposely done to manipulate and control and change children so that they're more compliant than we were. And the problem is, you have to realize that an entity that would have that long a vision of 140 years, that's not human. Even myself, the biggest thing I've had is over 40 years where I've started a project and then just recently watched it complete, like a publishing of a book or something that I started 40 years ago. But to have a vision or game plan of 140 years, like a Rothschild or the draconian bloodlines of Europe or something, makes me feel I'm missing something really important here.
Well, you know, traditionally, wasn't it religion that would give us the bigger perspective, the longer-term perspective that we would attach our own efforts to?
Yeah, I think religions are mostly for fellowship and renewing or strengthening our own personal beliefs by finding common ground with similar souls. And you cluster together in a religious cult or organized thing to play baseball on Sundays. You know, it's a fellowship kind of thing, making you feel that your values have a center besides just in yourself, verification or whatever. Spirituality, the other part of that equation, isn't so much what you do, but how you do it, the quality in which you go about your personal belief, whether you're a Muslim or a Hindu or Caucasian, you know, religious, Catholic, whatever. I sense that the nature of religions are going to change this next century in terms of their importance and structure in the nature of things. For the last 2,000 years, the Church of Rome has tried to control the world. And that's changing. And with China at war with Rome, you know, the Jesuits trying to minimum wage this way, to China minimum wage that, that part is going to change. And I think that education is the key to it.
Well, certainly this would be very much the case in China now, where, you know, the Chinese do have a long-term perspective that's missing in the U.S. now, where about the longest term perspective you can find is the next electoral cycle when it comes to politics, or the next quarter's earnings report if it comes to corporations, or maybe getting the grades you need if you're a student. And the perspective is so short, but in China they're actually thinking, a lot of them are thinking longer term than we do in the U.S. And they're winning.
I remember when education was the most important thing stressed in my family. When I was a little boy, the importance of me going on and going as far as I could education-wise. And actually, that has stayed in my personal belief system to the point where I'm still going to school, even at my age of 70 now. I still go to school. I try to study.
But why should we stop? I mean, that's when we stop learning, then we're kind of giving up, aren't we?
Kind of, you know, reading, music, the fine arts of appreciation of trying to raise our quality of something beyond what we are. I want something more like David Copperfield going for his bowl of porridge. I'd like some more, please. You know, values.
But in the times of, I mean, we did have a time where on our planet, and I'm thinking of the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, when we went through, you know, decades, centuries, where even a millennium, where very little changed. And, you know, basically there was a power structure. Most people were serfs. A few people were on top. And those people probably had some access to books, which were handwritten. But the vast majority of people, they didn't know anything more than they needed to know to be good serfs.
That changed. I remember it was quite different. My parents wanted me to become more than they were. And I remember that being instilled in me to the point where I'm very proud of my daughter. Want more for my grandchildren, you know.
No doubt. I mean, if we grew up in the 50s, and maybe you started a bit before that, but there was a feeling, especially then coming out of the war, that I want my country and my world to be, my family, to be better than I had before me. And my father came out of the Depression, and he wanted things better for his kids. But now it's hard. I mean, when you're having children now, you're hoping their life will be as good as yours was.
Yeah, and it isn't. And to grow up in a ghetto, it's different. You know, when I was in Mexico, even though I saw Mexico City, I saw like 22 million people on or near the streets. One of the things I did notice was that the children under 4 were all happy.
That was what?
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, they didn't know any different. It wasn't about money and things. They had not been imprinted on the importance of having a Nike tennis shoe that you could throw up over a clothesline to mark your territory. Wasn't about that.
So
it's different.
What was allowing them to be happy?
I think that children are born with joy and that we forget it.
That's profound.
Well, I think so. I think that's what makes them smarter than adults, is that they are more indigenous in terms of the way they relate to themselves and seeking joy. That wonderment of the child's eyes opening wide with a realization of something.
But isn't that just largely a matter of living in the now?
That's exactly correct.
So, you know, we can always kind of experience if we're open enough to new things, we can experience the joy of discovering something, learning something new, just the way a child does. But it takes a lot of work when you get older. I mean, it takes a lot of
It's not
discipline.
supposed to be easy. That's why you're here in the physical plane.
Yeah. So to keep yourself open enough, and that means avoiding the habits of.
Well, that's it. That is we discovered called a PGO wave in the occipital region of the cerebral cortex. It's not a directional alpha. It's a special kind of a wave that goes through. You got your alpha thing, you're in an alpha state, and then you have this wave that goes through, and it's called a PGO wave. And we now believe that those are the little rituals that we play with ourselves. They're like small levels of contracts where you have to not step on a line because you'll break your mother's spine. You play these little games in the way you walk and the way you behave and the way you act, where when you flush the toilet and before it clears, you're going to have to get the toothpaste on the toothbrush or everything, and that'll be a good day then, say. Those little games, those little rituals that we do form what's called a PGO wave in the brain, and that is possibly where your auto-exec bat file is, your boot up for the day.
So Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets, right? I mean,
yeah, there you go.
He was so
That's
driven by
dog
ritual,
bacon. That's
and
why
then
he
he
loves
got
me.
out of that, and it was by getting out of that ritual that he discovered, life was beautiful.
Well, no, it's not getting out of the ritual. It's changing the ritual. And so you're going to do rituals like celebration of myths. You're going to do that because it's an archetypal thing that you can't not do. It's just which way and why and when. And by just making small modifications in your behavior have a resonant effect in terms of how you relate to what's going on. This is one of the first principles of magic. That's why most magicians, the real ones, don't take baths except just before a ritual. And that's where they have a switch going from the profane into the sacred. And you do it by taking your bath, and all of a sudden now you're clean, you smell better, you're ready to assimilate the experience.
But
And
the
otherwise,
the bath is just one of many things you could use to achieve that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's arbitrary. Just like putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush before the toilet clears. It's the little behaviors that you have of when you take a morning piss as opposed to brushing your teeth or having your pills or making your bed or, all the different things that you have little rituals of. Do you put your left shoe on first or your right shoe? All of that changes behavior. And once you observe that and not monitor it for yourself internally, not someone else's, but just yours, now you have a tool to make changes in yourself. As simple as that.
So I'm still a little confused on this, Rick. The ritual sets up the change, or the ritual is the change?
The correct response is yes, all of the above.
Thanks very
yes, both of them. That would be the correct response. The two are the same at one level of development. And once you recognize your participation in it, that's the place where there is a contract formed in your behavior and changes in behavior. And this is how you can get over addiction and other kinds of things like that. That's why the ibogaine, which is this new drug that comes out of the iboga plant that's used to cure, isn't that a cool one where I'm holding that glass light in my hands like that? Aside, just kidding. That's that two-dimensional artwork, holding the light in my hands.
That's a nice trick.
Yeah, no. Just thought I would like to mess with you a little bit. That realization of your relationship to what you're doing is where it starts internally as changing yourself.
Okay, so that's the anti-zombification right there. Is
Ah, there you go.
you get out of the zombie kind of routine thing, and you become something bigger, magical, by giving yourself this role in a drama that's much bigger than you were before.
And what you're doing is rewriting the program inside yourself on your responses to things.
Yes.
And how you choose to respond.
So when you're doing magic, okay, and we should do a little piece of Geller here. We won't do Geller, but this time, but we'll do a little piece of Geller. So when you're doing magic, when you're doing real magic, not just the conjuring part, how big do you go? I mean, if you're trying to use a ritual or some other way to connect, how big do you go?
It's like making love. You go into a sacred time place where the child place that we were talking about of joy. And once you're in that joy place of laughing and just seeing how everything connects with yourself, you have made a first step toward personal enlightenment.
Whose awareness is that? Living in the now is living in the awareness, and what that means is somehow you're the eye through which something bigger than you is seeing what's happening.
Well, that's you starting from the inside and going outward and changing the physical world because of what's going on internally. It turns out, at least in my universe of belief systems, that internal landscape is far more vast than the reaches of space. And I can't explain other than Aldous Huxley and Doors of Perception. It is layers upon layers. There was Julius Stillman had during 777 UN Plaza. He was that guy. Julius Stillman had a magazine called Fields Within Fields. Julius Stillman. And that talked about the layers of awareness. And it's like layers of an onion. And as you start to map that landscape, now you have a thing like the Bordeaux Sadal where you have a road map where there be cow pies and goals or landmarks so that you could navigate where you were internally and where you want to go. And once you made that kind of discovery with self, now you have made it almost halfway to God. That's like union with self, where there's this cooperation. Cooperation is a good word. Cooperating with not my ego, demanding that it be this way, but allowing something to guide me to see it better.
So, Rick, I want to take that right down to the feeling level, and maybe talk about chakras. When that's all working, when you're in the joy, you're in the moment, and you've got to a high enough level to make something special happen, where do you feel the energy flowing from inside yourself? Is there a chakra point or something that's more energized?
It's a fountain. It starts at the bottom of your feet and goes straight up your body and showers. And that creates the secondary bodies of what we call electromagnetic radiation, or whatever way you want to call that, as part of the non-local part of self. There it's outside the body, and yet it's part of the showering of this energy that's going through.
By being aware of that and fostering that, can you use your mind to kind of, knowing the flow can go that way, can you use your mind to direct it and enhance it?
Well, that's what they call middle pillar exercise. That's the primary first thing you do. Chanting, so you're setting up resonances, visualization, so you're seeing the way the energy is moving, and really, it's your mind's eye and imagination that makes it real.
So it has to get up to that mind's eye. It has to get high enough in the chakra
start here in the third eye, right here, right. That's where you started,
to
right
trigger
there.
that energy flow even from the head.
Yeah, it comes out of the top of the head and like a showering.
Oh, top
like
of the head.
Yeah, it just goes right through your body. Just like you're swimming.
And
it's a visualization. I will upload, if you'd like, for your thing, the middle pillar exercise, which is what it is it recalibrates your body each morning by doing chants with the sun when it comes up. And you chant and do these chants, and what it does is it starts all that process of recalibrating and readjusting things so that you're working in true.
Working in true, that means something to you.
Yeah, you want to be in sense with yourself. It does not mean that it's the same for other people, because we're more limited than God's will, and it might seem like we're in conflict, when in fact, there's a purpose for all of this.
The purpose.
That's what I'm about, is discovery. That part of discovery of my relationship to the whole of things.
Discovering that purpose.
Right.
So
that's
the true is the effort that allows the flow, and the flow is somehow connecting with your purpose to allow this thing to be self-generating.
How did I put it in a movie title once I wrote at Evergreen? It was called Eat the Sun. Then you will be your own father.
Wow.
It was on biofeedback in the Temple of Self-Amplification. How's that one?
Eat the Sun. I love that.
I did that back in the 70s. And it was about a religion based on biofeedback with the Vitaru Talamahandi. It won it won Best Picture of the Year. It was called Eat the Sun.
Wow.
And it won Best Picture in Cannes. We wrote it. Papa Johnny actually did the filming of it at Evergreen. It was an experimental movie about a new religion based on biofeedback, the Temple of Self-Amplification.
Does
and the
that
whole
still
theory,
exist? Can we see that on the internet?
I've got an old bootleg copy I'll send you. Yeah, probably you can. I don't know. It's called Eat the Sun from Evergreen.
Okay,
at that college, it was Evergreen College. But that's a long time ago.
Rick, you've just given this episode its title.
Eat the sun.
Eat the sun.
Then you'll be your own father. Yeah, well, that's all part of how it works. And I wrote 3 books on this subject. After I played with that movie as a sci-fi, I then spent the next 6 years with the military making it so. And they were called The Diamond Body, Electromagic, and Yogatronics. 3 books. And they're on how to use video feedback systems to enhance. And I have, my laboratory is right here. That's my time machine, my little TARDIS. They've got me playing a white wolf in the woods because I'm close to spirit, and I have my little TARDIS next to me. That's the image that they're using now on me. I'll send you that little video. That's a nice one because I'm Doctor Who. I've got a get out of jail card.
I love it. Well, Rick, I think that what we should do as far as the original idea of doing the Geller.
We'll do that another time. Yeah, no problem.
We're going to do that next time. Well, we're going to use that as the thing we're always going to do next time that we never quite do.
Stay tuned. Same bat channel. Same bat time. Will Batman save Robin? Will Robin
Eat the Sun, and I'm going to make some links from here. And
I will get you a copy of that video if you'd like. It was on VHS. I have it on a DVD. The quality is terrible, and you can get it from Evergreen University now. It's archived there. It's called Eat the Sun.
What about the? If I put it on the internet,
I don't know what the rules of that are. We wrote that back in 1970. Maybe 2. 1972. It was a long time ago.
That's wonderful.
A long time ago. That was 42 years ago. And the whole idea was to use video feedback. What I did in my studies was I got to a place where I could simulate any drug experience using sound and light. By just assaulting the eyes and the ears, I could put you anywhere I wanted to, dimethyltryptamine, ketamine, whatever, easily. Because I learned how...
had experience with those drugs to get it?
What's that?
I mean, if you'd never taken LSD, would you still be able to get the experience?
You have the experience right now with lysergic acid amide. That little thing that goes, you know, when you go aha,
yeah.
That's LSD being released in the brain, small quantity, but that's what it is, and that's your brain doing it. That particular neurotransmitter is the one that connects dots. The bad news is the dot connecting is arbitrary, because the brain is a 5-space projector system.
So you connect dots that shouldn't be connected.
Well, no, they are arbitrary. That isn't that they are not or shouldn't be connected. You just change timelines and time loops.
So you make sort of non-obvious and maybe less meaningful connections?
No, they have certain realities and restrictions. And so, is that the universe you want to create? Because this is what you can and can't do in that universe. That's why you have the option of changing universes. I know it's a little bit, but it's like being sliders. What color do you want your hair to be? Jet Li, the one. That idea that you're in a lot of different universes, a multiverse, if you will, and that there is a resonance that you're seeking where you're making all these different universes in synchronicity with the movement of pushing that light.
That's beautiful. Hey, Rick, I think this might be a pretty good place to finish today.
Cool.
And I enjoyed it. It's been really interesting. It wasn't quite what I expected, but that's what I
it never
about
is. That's what you get when you do me. You're not quite sure. It's like a life's a box of chocolates.
And that's what I enjoy because it's been a discovery and it's been a surprise and a wonderful one. So we'll continue next time. And,
you bet.
Thank you very much again. And
my pleasure.
I look forward to the next one.
Roger that. Thank you.